Welcome to the revolution in the airwaves. It's The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just talk about the medical industry, we transform it. This is The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just cover excellence, we create it.
Hey, welcome to The Cure. Scotty and Sully, we're back again. Scotty, we've been keeping a pretty regular schedule. I'm very proud of us.
I'm amazed that we've been able. Obviously, I'm at my house today. I'm not in my normal setup because I'm flying out of town today to go to Haida and then to the Shine meeting. But yeah, I'm shocked that we've kept the schedule as good as we have.
I've been in that house before. I think that's a fake back. That's not really your house. Your house looks like a homeless shelter.
Yeah, they actually live in downtown LA in a box.
All right. Well, we are pumped. We've got Joel Goldberg today, and Joel's going to tell you a little bit about what he does. But just a little background. Joel is he's a guy who's been in my kitchen for the past 17 years, from spring training on through the end of baseball. Joel he works with the great Jeff Montgomery, who's an old Kansas City Royals Hall of Famer, and he's a broadcaster for the Royals, and so. A couple of years ago, Joel got into the speaking business because over those 17 years, and even beyond that, and before even it ended with the Royals, you learn a lot of things by being around a lot of champions and a lot of people, not only on the field, but in business. And so he's taken that and he's really wrapped it into some great content, great keynotes. He's a guy who can attend your national sales meeting, fire people up, but also give them real usable insight on things that they can do better. And so he and I pounded a few cocktails on Friday. I believe, Joel, your drink of choice was the old fashioned.
It was excellent. I don't know if we pounded them, but we got there. We got
doesn't sound like you guys were there to come in second.
No,
never.
No, that his lovely wife and son called him from the bullpen and said, "You two are done. Get over here, Joel."
Time to come to dinner.
All right, so Joel, tell the folks a little bit about what you do, what topics you talk about.
It's interesting, Sully, and good to be with both of you guys, Scott. All I ever wanted to do growing up was television. I think nothing that we wanted to do as a kid, whether we ended up where we wanted to or not, is the same because the world changes. So, right, I mean, there were no pre and post game. I host every pre and post game show and have hosted every pre and post game show of every televised Royals game in the last 16 years, travel with them wherever they go. I'm also the in-game reporter, so I'm down by the dugout. Being in a smaller market like Kansas City has given me the chance to do all of those things, and they don't need to hire anyone else to share those responsibilities. We don't have an NHL or an NBA team here, so it's been a blessing. Well, I didn't. That was enough, I think. Maybe I don't know. Is enough? What's enough? I got to a point where I didn't want to leave Kansas City. That I knew that I found my spot here. So then it's what else? And once I stumbled into the speaking thing, what I realized, and people, think about how often you hear people use sports analogies. He hit it out of the park. Like people do that with me all the time. Like, sorry, no pun intended, But we all use those sports analogies. And so they're very relatable. Baseball to me more than anything, because it's every day. It's a sport of failure. You've got to figure out a way to come back and do it again tomorrow. And oh, by the way, it's in a locker room of 26 guys from different places in the world and different backgrounds and different languages, and you got to make it work. And it just dawned on me that they've got to get culture right and teamwork right and all these elements. And I'm riding shotgun for all of this. So let me share those stories with audiences. And, I did it with a little trepidation and focused on Kansas City at first and realized that it's a message that plays all over the country or beyond even.
That's awesome. And 17-year run is really cool.
Hey, you know what though, Scott, it's a couple things. I mean, one, what it has me doing now when I see that all the players are different and they've changed over multiple times, but not just that, a lot of the members of the media, we don't have a big media core here, again, smaller market, but the members of the media that travel have gotten younger and younger and younger, and I'm getting older and older and older. And there's so many lessons there. One that I can and do share with audiences of how do you stay relevant? How do you communicate with people when the world is changing and when they're maybe getting younger than you? And we can get stubborn in our old ways. So that's the first piece. But then to the 17 years, that blows my mind to be in one place in any profession, let alone mine, where people move so much. So, okay, I decided to stay here, but they also have to want you to stay here. To this point, they do. And I think that piece of it is all relational. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm the greatest broadcaster of all time. I'm not. I don't think I'm the worst of all time. If you're the worst and you're in that bottom category, they're not going to keep you. But unless you are in my profession, Al Michaels or Joe Buck or Bob Costas or fill in the blank, those guys, Jim Nance, and those are good guys. But you don't have to get all the relationships right if you're that good. You should, right?
Right.
But for me, the only way you stay as long as you do is by treating people the right way and being fair and being where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there and all that type of stuff. And then evolving with the times and changing as the times change.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question of 17 years, you're relevant. And it seems so simple that your answer is, I was good to people. I showed up. I did my job. I worked hard, right? Scotty and I talk about this often. I don't know if it's because we're becoming old curmudgeons. And of course, guys like 50-year-old guys like the three of us get together and we say, hey, it doesn't seem that hard. Show up, follow up, be nice to people, be selfless, treat people great, introduce that guy to that guy who meets that guy. Right? Why does it seem so hard, Joel?
Well, I think that we're all guilty of playing the comparison game. That's true in any profession. And you see someone down the block or the competition or someone in your office or someone in my profession that's, cutthroat and really, really good. And I'm not saying that I can't be cutthroat, but we're wired to follow the shiny object. And whether that's money or whether that's the flashiest person out there or whatever it is. And I think there's room to do it the right way. They may be doing it the right way too. I don't know. I guess there's maybe a little bit more there to just being yourself. I mean, if you're not the nicest guy, and I don't know if I'm that, but I think there's room for everybody to treat everybody well. That reputation will follow you anywhere. That's where I'm getting at. Like, if you're that good, they'll ignore that reputation. Why do they bring a guy into a Major League Baseball clubhouse with a checkered past? Because he's so damn good, you can't help it, right? And typically you see the Yankees and the Dodgers and the teams like that'll do it because, you know what, if it doesn't fit, well, we'll move on and they've got a higher credit card bill. We'll tear that one up and we'll move on to the next one. There's also ego involved too. We could fix them. They didn't know what they were doing. We can be the one to fix them, whether it be up in the head, whether it be we don't like his delivery. Oh, it didn't work in those other 5 spots, but we could do that here. So that's a little bit of a long way of me saying ego gets involved in it, Sully, almost every single time. I don't know. I just think having been doing this and not just the 17 years, I think this is my 30th year in television. When you do something and you're around it longer, you just start to understand these little things. And I think I think that's the beauty of being in our 50s. I'm not smarter than I was before. Maybe there's just more wisdom and an understanding.
Yeah, you kind of know what to look for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about trust a little bit, like building trust within a team and what you've seen kind of over the years. I mean, obviously, when you're talking major league sports and personality, to your exact words a second ago, ego. I mean, how have you seen them just be able to build trust within the team? I just don't think because if you don't have it, it's never going to work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, could I do my job without trust? Yes, we all could. Would it be as good? No. Would I last as long? No. I'm glad that you asked the trust question, Scott, because that has for years been my favorite topic to talk about. And it took all these years, 7 years of this business, of going through a bit of a rebrand right now and deciding that this big umbrella, I guess, Big Ten culture speech was going to be more effective by just focusing on trust. So my number one keynote is called Winning Trust. And, my whole pitch to audiences of any type, bankers, insurance, education, what you name the profession, doctors, my whole pitch to them is that trust is something that you practice every single day. It's not a check the box type of item. It's not, okay, I figured it out, time to move on. There are players right now that I'm still building trust with that have left Kansas City and moved on to other teams 5-6 years ago. But see, here's what happens. As soon as I get off with you guys Eric Hosmer, who Sully, knows who he is well, but and Scott, you may too. But I mean, he was pretty legendary here in Kansas City, one of the ringleaders and central figures of their World Championship of 2015, homegrown, drafted out of high school in Florida, 18 years old, and left to make the big bucks in free agency with San Diego, and that could have been it. He never came back here and played. But this is the example. There are two examples with this. One, he finally comes back with the opposition for the first time in 2022. He was supposed to come back with San Diego in 20, and we had the pandemic. Then he's supposed to come back in 22 with San Diego, and I'm eyeballing it on the calendar. We're finally going to bring him back, and he gets traded like 3 weeks before he's going to come back with San Diego. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So he gets traded to Boston, and here's the other piece of having done this as long as I have. I don't always really know who we're playing next. I just know where I need to be, or home, or going to the city. It's a lot of games, and it's on my phone. I could always check it. So he got traded to Boston. I looked down at my phone. Oh my gosh, Boston's here in 2 days. His first game as a member of the Red Sox is going to be against the Royals. If I now expect when he shows up the first time back at Kauffman Stadium to be able to land that one-on-one interview, it's a shot in the dark. I mean, maybe it's a little more than that because I always treated him fairly and vice versa. But since he left in 2017, I sent him a text message when he got married, when his kid was born, when I saw that his family member, his brother the wife had a baby. Congratulations. Say hi to the family. Hey, congrats on that big home run last night. Not a lot, just little touches out every now and then.
Yeah.
So he gets traded to Boston. I send him a text. Well. Congratulations. Look at where you're coming next. Hey, really happy for you. Happy you're moving back to the East Coast, closer to your family in Florida. I know you're going to be busy first day on the job, but if you have time for your old friends, Joel Goldberg and Jeff Montgomery, I'd appreciate it. And we landed the one-on-one interview. Now, he just retired 3 weeks ago. It was not the first time that he was hearing from me. We've already talked a couple times this offseason. So actually, as soon as I get off with you guys, I'm going to text him and say, hey, sometime in the next 2 weeks, when do you have an hour to jump on this podcast? And he'll say yes. It'll just be a matter of timing. I say that confidently, just knowing that I have built that trust with him. And then once he was out of the picture, I've continued to build that trust with him. Trust is an everyday language. It's important in every profession and personally in life as well.
Yeah. A couple of things that you just said right there that really hit home with me. And I talk to my sales team about this all the time. And the main one was the little touch points that you make with him on stuff that's not, hey, can I get this from you? I need this from you. I want to pitch you on this new program we've got. And we have a product called the IDN directory. And within that directory, you can go in and set your favorite health systems up. And if anything happens news-wise within that health system during the week, you get one email on Friday. Hey, Piedmont Healthcare just bought 30 OBGYN practices across Greater Atlanta, blah, blah, blah. And we tell the reps all the time, it's like, take that news and send it to the guy you're trying to reach at Piedmont Health and say, hey, saw you just bought these. Congratulations. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with it. It's just little touch points to build trust.
Without a doubt. And, I'll give you this. I've got this thank you note sitting here right now. I had a business coach who's amazing, guy by the name of Mark LeBlanc for a few years. And then I just got to a point where I needed to take a break and focus on some other things. And he just sent me a thank you note saying, hey, the other day, just thinking of you, you're a force with what you do. And thanks for being my friend. And I have so much respect for you. Hope you're doing well. I know he's trying to stay in touch to get my business back. He didn't do anything wrong, by the way. And whenever the time is right for me to go back, I won't look elsewhere. So that's it. Like, Scott, you're dead on. Little touches. It's not a little touch when you have to ask for something, but sometimes you do have to ask for something.
Yeah.
But you better have all those little touches leading up to it. That's why I have no concern. My only concern with getting Hosmer on the podcast is just fitting the timing, and he retired, but he's now with started a big media company, podcasting and all this other stuff. He's busy, but that's what it should be. And by the way, there's a formula to all this, but it's different for every single person you're reaching out to. And so the higher level is then figuring out how do they like to communicate? Yeah. Because one of the key pieces to me of building trust is making when you build trust with someone or any interaction you have with someone, are you making their life easier or more difficult? Just put it as simply as that. We all have personal friends like this or business acquaintances, or when they see your name pop up on the phone or in an email or in a text message, or they see you walk in, or do they want to hide or are they excited to see you?
I'm making a note of that right now.
That is what I work on every day in a Major League Baseball clubhouse. And I'm the one that has to. Jeff Montgomery doesn't need to work on that. He's got 304 career saves to his resume. I can get a laugh every now and then when I say that he and I combined have 304 career saves, and everybody understands that I had no part of that one. So I have to work on that. Not that he doesn't. Our play-by-play guy and our color commentator up in the booth, yes, they need to work on that. But I'm the one that's got to be in there getting the answers and getting all that stuff every single day. And, maybe they think of me as the old guy now. I don't really know, but they all talk to me. They don't have to. And, they all seem to respect me. And if there's some respect issues or some issues going on that I'm unsure about, then I'm going to work hard to try to make that better. And the other piece to this is that when you build trust every day and you go about it the right way, you get a reputation. Now, you could throw that reputation away overnight, but for the most part, people will then be your advocates. And so I'm lucky enough to have built all that up. I could throw it away, but tomorrow or today by doing the wrong thing. It's not something I live in fear of. It's probably something I obsess over quite a bit. I'm very mindful of it every single day. Am I doing the right thing? I know what the right thing is. Did I do the right thing? Did I get a little bit careless here? Did I, sometimes you gotta, I'll tell audiences that trust is a long game. But sometimes you got to swing for the fences. Sometimes you have no choice, and you got to jump in there. And sometimes you strike out.
You need emotional intelligence for this, right? So without putting a corporate buzzword to this, it's awareness, right? I love what you're saying is when they see your cell phone number pop up, what's a great visual, right?
Yeah.
Are they hanging there? You're thinking of something right now, right? And those are usually the folks who are always, to your point, asking for something, and they're not putting in deposits of goodness, right? Yeah. And if you put in enough of those deposits, then you can occasionally make a withdrawal. We've talked about this on previous shows, Scotty. So what's the simple habit for my audience, which is salespeople? And it's exactly what you just said, Scotty. It's if they associate every time you walk in that door, pick up the phone, that you're coming with this open hand, give me.
There's no value. You bring no value.
That's right. And so find ways to either, and what I say is either make them smarter or make them happier, right? Every contact you make, those are the only two things you've got to do. Maybe you're selling nothing. Maybe you're not even sharing an article or some best practice, Scotty. Maybe you're just making their day, like that thank you note, Joel, right? I mean, what a simple thing. And dude, Scotty, how often are we talking about these handwritten thank you notes? Right? It's like every
I always
week.
think of Rob Sarin. Rob was so good at it. I mean, he sent those postcards for years wherever he was.
But I also think, when it becomes there's a danger with everything, whether it's the handwritten thank you note, the call every 6 months, that there's a danger of it getting a little too robotic and predictable too. And so, there is a decent formula for each person and each person but mix it up a little bit. Like if all you're doing is firing off thank you notes all day long, and you're known as the thank you note person, and we all know people like that, it's very impressive. But when I come to expect, I didn't expect this note. Right. But if he's going to send one every 6 months or a year, it's going to eventually fall on deaf ears. I will remember that. I mean, there is something to be said. I don't know about for you guys, but for me, I do a newsletter once a month. I understand that as my database grows, that the number of people that I'm able to opt into it that are going to opt out, I get that part. But for all the people that may or may not read it, and we work hard on making it very entertaining and trying to give people a peek behind the scenes around all my travels in baseball and then lessons in there. If I'm going to do it, I want them to have value to it. But I understand that they may not look at it, but maybe just that email that goes in there. I don't want it every day. I don't want it every week. I don't know what the threshold is. Every time that someone sees it come in once a month, maybe I don't want to deal with this. That's fine. But to me, once a month seems fair. More significantly, is there someone in there that heard me speak 3 months ago or 4 months ago that sees a pop in and says, oh, wait a minute, that's right. I knew we got this annual meeting coming up in 9 months. Let me recommend him. So there's a balance to it all. You could go too far. You could do too. I'm probably guilty of doing too little. And I think that's just, for me, playing it safe in the clubhouse because I'm around those guys every single day. They don't need to hear from me every single day. So I usually I'll play it safe and then ramp it up when I need to. But that's where, one of the pillars that I talk about in my winning trust speech is make it mindful. None of this should really be by accident. It should always be on your mind. I'm always constantly reevaluating, did I do the right thing or the wrong thing? And maybe that's a little debilitating at times, but I think it's healthy too.
Well, the simple thing you are doing is you're trying to think, you're putting yourself in the mind of the person you're having the relationship with.
Yes.
So it's not just about you. You're saying, right, it's them first. What do they want out of me? And finding this, I liken it to an elastic band, right? It's sort of like, they pull away. Do you go with them? It's a hard thing. It's trying to figure out when in, when out. You and I had this chat on Fridays. We're sitting there because we started talking a little bit about social media, right? And again, maybe it's just because we're in our 50s and we're like, gosh, everyone says you're supposed to post every day. I do email campaigns, and I really started ramping that up a year ago, and I started studying it, and I learned you got to do a cold email campaign, hit them every day for 15 days. And I'm going, it's just not me. I don't want to be that guy. But the data says you got to keep showing up. You got to keep being there. Joel, you and I are similar in that. I don't want to ever be perceived as the needy dude. There's something to be said about, I don't know, being maybe a little, maybe even a little tough to get to. I don't know. It's hard.
Well, I agree with that. I just know for me, if I start getting an email every single day, I'll find somebody that's doing the same type of thing that sends me an email once a month. But that's just me. Like,
I know.
So
I know.
that's what I mean in understanding your audience. That's what I'm doing. There are 26 players in there, plus another 10 coaches or whatever it is. And now I'm face to face. I wasn't during the pandemic. That was much more challenging, and where I had to actually remove the safety net and sometimes just ask. Everything I was doing during the pandemic with our players was via Zoom, or if the team wasn't setting it up, it was on my own via text. And now I can't read body language. And so I'm just texting, hey, I had a few things I wanted to ask you. And if you've got time for a quick conversation, is there any time between 2 and 5:30 today that you might have a couple of minutes? I don't know how busy you are, and I don't want to get in the way. And that would always work. But really, for me, when I walk into a Major League Baseball clubhouse, I'll just look at body language. Does a guy look like he's settled in at his locker and just hanging out? Is he in conversation with someone else? I'm not going to interrupt that. Is he sitting at a couple of tables they have in there, which is generally for eating or for playing cards? Not going to interrupt that. That gets pretty challenging. If they're in between a hand and it looks like this game might go an hour, and I'm going to waste my time sitting in there for an hour to then find out that as soon as that game is over, that hour long of playing cards is over and he's going right to batting practice, then I don't need to spend any time in there. So maybe in between hands while someone's shuffling, hey, Bobby, I don't want to interrupt the card game. Of course, I never would. Is there a chance for me to get you before batting practice? And if so, what's a good time for you? I don't want to hover, that type of thing. But you can read it. Guy looks like he's in a rush. I can read Salvador Perez every time. He's settled in. No, he just walked to his locker and he's grabbing a bunch of stuff and he's not going to sit down. You know what? He's on the move. I don't need to know what he's doing. I can just tell that he's doing something, and I'm going to get in the way of that. If you get in the way of people long enough over and over again, they'll start running the other way. So much of this is that emotional intelligence, Sully. Not everybody's good at that, by the way. There's some people that are never going to take that cue, and they've got to work harder or find different ways to do it. Some people are not wired to do that. I am. I think it's a skill. I think that a lot of people, if they think about it, could be better at it. But I'll tell you what, your chances go up when you put that other person in the right frame of mind.
Yeah,
So
Scotty,
so
what's it
excited
sound like?
about the locker room.
What's it sound? Well, what's
Look how red Sully's head is.
I like a good locker room. But what's this sound like, Scotty? Right, as Joel's talking, I'm imagining any number of salespeople walking into a hospital, right? Because our audience, Joel, because we spend a lot of time in healthcare and working with these medical companies, and access is all we hear. These salespeople say, I don't have access since COVID. I just can't. No one will meet with me. And everything you were describing sounded like a salesperson walking to a hospital. Yeah. But here's the difference in what you're saying. You put yourself in the locker room, so you're close enough. So when the body language says that it's safe to come in, you then go in. We have salespeople who we work with who won't put themselves in the locker room because they say no one will talk to me, right? So you got to get in the locker room first, and then you've got to do what you're saying, then read the room, and that's the combo.
I mean, I wrote a full chapter in my book that was called Read the Room. It's such a powerful skill to have. And I don't get it right every time, but I get it right most of the time. Now, it helps that I'm around the same people all the time, most of the same people. When I have to do something with the other team, that becomes a little bit different, and I might need to build that trust on the fly. I might need to build it in the moment. And so, then you got to read body language with someone maybe you don't know. And the bulk of the time that I spend in a Major League Baseball clubhouse or in the dugout during batting practice is put the camera down. I'll be standing in the clubhouse. We usually have about a 50-minute period where it's open before batting practice. That's Major League Baseball rules. They don't have to talk to you. And that's when we get to go in there. I don't like it in one sense because very little is scheduled. You can't sit there and schedule out every interview every day for 162 games. For NFL, he's going to be available now. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot. We have a great media relations staff with the Royals that if I need to chase someone down, I'll ask them. They also understand that I could do most of it myself. If it's something really big, some kind of sit down or, the owner or the GM or something like that, then, we got to go through the formalities. But for the most part, you're going in there, and the thing I don't like is that you might just be standing there for 50 minutes. It's their bedroom, it's their home, and now I'm just lingering. And so I'm very careful of that, the perception of that too. So what I'll often do, my cameraman will be in there with me, is I'll just start going, and I'll tell my cameraman, hey, just hang here, and I'll go start working the room and just talking to guys. Hey, how's it going? How's the family? How's the rehab going? And it might be 20 seconds and I may not need anything. Or if I see, I'm going to go over and I'm going to talk to Salvador Perez. But before I bring over this camera, body language wise, it looks like he's okay. But now I need verbal confirmation. So I'm going to go over and talk to him in the corner locker, and he's the captain of the team. And, if I can get it right with him, then I should be able to get it right with everybody, but it starts with him. Salvi, what's going on? Nothing. Okay. Hey, now I could tell he's on the move. I'm not going to even ask. All right. Looks like he's staying. Looks pretty comfortable. A catcher has more meetings and more responsibilities before a game than anyone in baseball. So I have to respect. I understand. I have to respect that. Hey, do you got a couple minutes to answer a couple questions? Yeah, I got it. That's cool. Okay. But before I do that, just so you know, I really only need like 2 questions. That all the media over there, because what happens is, and this is just the world of television now, that the local TV stations may send out a camera person, but they may not send a reporter. They're just staffing and all that. So it might be a camera person holding a microphone. I'll grab the mic and hold it for them to help out. I understand what that's like, but they're not in there to ask questions. So what happens is that everybody comes over. The one that just has the cameras, not then the writers and the this and the that, and suddenly everybody comes over because I've got that relationship. Not that they couldn't get Salvi too. So now that minute or 2 minutes that I promised turns into 10 minutes. Whose fault is that? That's my fault, because he's going to remember that, oh my gosh, Joel sent me back and made me late. So in that case, I'm going to say, okay, do you have a minute? Yeah. Okay, good. Look, it's actually just 2 questions, but they may all come over there. Are you good if this goes longer? And if not, if you're in a rush, is there somewhere privately we can go do it or do it later? Just whatever I've got to do to put them at ease so that the experience is an easy one, and do it over and over and over again. Or if it's going to be longer, let them know it's going to be longer, and whether they know it or not, they respect it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a great
I think
lesson.
it's so key for the people that Sully and I talk to all the time. So I publish a magazine that goes to distribution sales reps. They can sell 500,000 different SKUs into a hospital, doctor office, nursing home, any of that setting. So needles, syringes, gloves, table paper, all the way to a chemistry analyzer that sells for $100,000. And it's so what you're describing is the same thing of walking into a practice. Does this lab tech have time right now to let me pitch her on this new lateral flow test from Quidel that just came out or whatever? And I've done so many ride days in my lifetime with reps and just watched that some of them just no clue at reading. And I'm like, you're not going to get anything out of this account, dude. She's got 16 patients in rooms right now.
Scott, it's so interesting that to go back to what I was saying, and it fits exactly to what you're saying here. It was a handful of years ago. We had, Sully will know this. Again, I don't know why I have to qualify it other than he's in Kansas City and you're not, Scott. But,
and I'm really smart. I know everything.
You got an Atlanta Falcons cup, so but you look smart. You look smarter than Sully. It's the glasses. But we had a player named Mike Moustakis. Came up 1 year before Eric Hosmer. Came up the same year. They were Batman and Robin. They were the dynamic duo, whatever you want to call it. Again, understanding the personalities. Moose more intense than Hosmer. Both guys that would do things for me, and great gets for anybody to have. But I remember walking into the clubhouse one day, and my producer had said to me, "Can you get a soundbite from Mike Moustakis for the pregame show?" I don't know what it was, about hitting the opposite way lately or something. So we need 30 seconds. And so I walk in. And I look over and I could see that Moustakis is he's got the look of someone that's distracted, busy. It doesn't matter to me whether I don't remember if he was on the phone with his family, whether he was on the way to go, whatever it was, I could tell. I'm not even going to ask him. Now, if it's an emergency, again, swing for the fences, in my head, I know that if I don't get him, I could ask the hitting coach, hey, what's he been doing lately? And I can get that same soundbite from the hitting coach, and it may be better, maybe worse, but whatever it is, I can cover myself there. So I make the decision not to ask him. And of course, I never told my producer this. I just told him he wasn't available that day, and that's fine. My producer is great. He would understand that. But then I watch a local member of the media. This was a day that they did send a TV reporter from one of the local affiliates. Now, remember, I'm there 7 days a week, 6-7 days, whatever it is, on the road, wherever. And, this guy may be there, good reporter and all that. He may be there once a homestand. And then they go on the road for a week. He may see these players once every 10, 14 days, if that. And he walks right up to Moustakis after I mentally processed that and goes, "Hey, Moose, you got a second?" He goes, "Nope." And he popped up, grabbed his bat, and he walked off. And the poor guy kind of says out loud, "Oh, you can't blame me for trying, can you?" And Moose kind of looked at him because he heard it, and he goes, "Okay." So now, how did Moose feel? All right, Moose said no. Look, for the most part, I don't know psychology, but for the most part, it's hard to say no. Some people are better at it than others, but it never feels great, right? It takes effort. You've got to either come up with an excuse or you got to be really blunt and say sorry. Yeah, well, whatever it is, no is harder than yes. That's why a lot of us get roped into things that we don't want to do. And so that guy, without meaning to, put Moustakis through having to say no that day. Mm-hmm. That's fine. He won't see him again for a couple of weeks, but I got to see him again tomorrow and the next day. And as the guy said, "Well, you can't blame me for trying," I sat there and thought, I'm blaming you for trying because I could have told you not to have done that, but he didn't see it. A week later, we're in, I think, Minnesota. I got the soundbite from the hitting coach that day. Everything was fine. A week later, we're in Minnesota, and I need a soundbite. It might not have even had to be from Moustakis. It was about something, whatever. Need to get 2 or 3 guys on whatever the topic is. And I walk, guys, beautiful day. I walk into the dugout at Target Field. The visiting team takes batting practice second. So Royals really aren't out there yet. The Twins are on the field, and guys will trickle out early. And Moustakis trickles out. He's got his bat with him. He's got a big smile. "What's up, Joel?" "Hey, Moose, how you doing?" "Hey, I had a question. Do you have 30 seconds for me right now just to ask you 2 quick questions on camera?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." Because he would have never known this. I just said, actually was going to try to get with you last week, but you look really busy and on the run, and I didn't want to slow you down, so I let you be. "Oh, hey, thanks, I appreciate that." Boom, done. that's what I'm doing every single day.
Yeah, it's so smart, right? So acknowledging people's time. Scotty, we talk about this when salespeople are cold calling, right? So Joel, right, we teach a lot of that. You got to go find a customer. Now that's hard because people aren't sitting around waiting for salespeople to call them. But if they have to pay their mortgage and feed their families, they're going to have to, maybe to some extent, act like that reporter. Okay, so it's a little different scenario. But what we teach them to always do is to acknowledge the time of the person they are prospecting with. And the words matter, right? Something simple as, hey, Joel, my name is Brian Sullivan. I'm with company XYZ. And your body language has to be mildly apologetic. And we teach them to say, did I catch you in the middle of anything? Before you ask any question, before you make any statement. And usually they'll say, well, what's this in regards to? Or if you did catch them in the middle of something important, they will say, yeah, this isn't a real good time, which is okay. You acknowledged, you gave them a chance to not be jerky, right? And your body language is sort of pulling back. So they still feel in control. And I think that's what Moose wasn't feeling in control when this guy's hitting him, right? And so the words you use matter, right? But always start by acknowledging their time.
Yeah, that's right. And it's possible that day he wasn't in control because he was distracted or busy. Right. And so the last thing he needed was that put on his plate. And then as the salesperson, you're going to wear that. Well, I didn't know that he was, well, you kind of did if you were paying attention. And if you weren't paying attention, then, at least ask about the time. That's exactly right. So, I mean, this stuff, and look, there are times where you don't have that rapport with someone. I don't need stuff every day from the other team, but if I got a chance to say hi to someone on the other team, because maybe I'm not going to build a relationship with Bryce Harper like I can with Salvador Perez. We see them 3 days a year. But if I could find some kind of commonality at least.
And what would you want to build a relationship with him?
Well, I know you're probably a Braves guy. So, but, here's one for you. And I don't know that I could pull it off or not. I may not, and with language barrier, it may be a little bit more of a challenge, but Ronald Acuna's first cousin, Michael Garcia, is the young starting third baseman for the Royals. So, could I try to get the two of them together? Can I leverage Michael to maybe ask his cousin if you would do that at the same time? And we finished the season with the Braves, so I could work on this all year long till the end of September.
That'd be a great interview, actually.
It'd be great, but, I also need to sit there and think, will this put Mike Hell in a spot where he doesn't want to do that? Is he looking up to his cousin so much? Because it's not just his older cousin, it's the best player arguably in the league. Yeah. So I need to feel, but now I have 6 months to gauge that. Hey, what we should do later in the year, Mike Hell? That'd be pretty fun, wouldn't it? That type of thing. In the short term, medium term, he told me last week at spring training, as his English is really improving and he wants to do more. I think he wants to work on that brand and put himself out there, which is awesome for me because he was a little reserved last year. He told me that his mom is starting to study English in Venezuela through Rosetta Stone so that when she comes over, she could be better with English. Well, I'll start planting some seeds now during the year that, hey, when your mom comes, let's talk the three of us on camera. But I'm going to go back to something real quick because I very quickly mentioned about having the camera, having the camera guy stay over there. That camera to me is the final sale. So if I'm going to walk up to someone with microphone and camera, I better know that sale is going to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I got to put that aside. And even if it's for 2 minutes schmoozing a little bit and okay, it's run and gun. Like, I had to do that at spring training last week. We have a new pitcher, Seth Lugo. You would have seen him some in the National League East for a while with the Mets, Scott, and he was with San Diego last year, signed the big contract in the rotation for the Royals. He was the last guy that I hadn't sat down at spring training, and I was leaving in like 10 minutes. And I'm like, all right, I got 5 minutes if he doesn't show up at his locker. Their workout schedules are weird at spring training. Guys might finish at 11, guys might finish at 1, depending on what they're working on, and off day, running day, lifting day, or whatever. And sure enough, like 10 minutes before I have to leave, he pops up at his locker. I'm like, well, there we go. Walk over, Seth. My name's Joel Goldberg. Nice to meet you. We actually met when you did your opening press conference. I know you would not remember this. I'm the pregame, postgame host, in-game reporter with the team. I'll travel with you guys everywhere I go. This is my 17th season. Been doing it a long time. I asked the first question in that press conference, but I'm sure it was a whirlwind, and there's no way that you would remember that. No, yeah, okay. No, I don't remember, but okay. Well, looking forward to working with you. Thanks. How's it going? How's the family adjusting? I'm in a rush, but I'm going to take those few minutes. Then, hey, I have a question for you, and this might not happen today. I typically would prefer to build the trust in the relationship, but I'm leaving for the airport in 5 minutes. You are the last guy that I was hoping to sit down. If I can't get you, we'll deal with it during the season. But would you be willing to do it right now? Yeah, where do we do it? It's just right down the hallway. Dude, on camera, can I dress like this? Is this okay? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Boom, done. And we got the interview done. But I backed myself into that corner, not intentionally. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. I was still going to give him the out if he needed it.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's kind of what Sully was saying. It's you give them the out, and then if they give you the opening, and then if they don't, hey, is there a better time for me to come back?
That's it.
Where we can, I want to show you something that's better for you. It's better for you. It's better for your patients, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. It's the attitude.
Trust. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Scotty. But it's the attitude of slight indifference that we teach a lot. It's, hey, I'm committed to getting the interview, but I'm not attached to the outcome. Right. And again, it's all about keeping them feeling in control. I want to ask you about this because I've been comparing lately selling to doing a great interview. So the skill that you've acquired over your many years of doing this is, like all great interviewers, you get your guests to open up and reveal and share things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't. Interesting things. Now, in the sales world, average or below average salespeople, they talk too much and they don't ask enough questions. That's the habit we're trying to teach. If you were to sit with a salesperson and give them some communication / interview skill that works for you to get folks to open up, that will also work for them and their clients, what would you tell them?
Listen and be curious. And look, I'm a talker, so I'm just as impatient and poor attention span as anybody else in the world right now, where we're all worse than we ever have been. Some people are more disciplined than others. Yeah, I mean, but I don't really come into very many interviews with a list or a script of questions. And to the point where sometimes, if my producer needs something specific for the pregame show, I'm in the middle of even like a scrum with the manager and I got my phone open so I don't forget it, because I just kind of go with what's in my head. I bring that up just because a lot of what comes into your head is, if you're listening to what they say, you can respond to it. If the response they give you then results in you asking something totally different, then were you really paying attention?
Right.
It doesn't feel like it to them. Validating people's opinions, what they say, even just by acknowledging it, or by them, believing that you are listening, they can tell for the most part, that this is just being a little bit authentic, paying attention, caring a little bit. And the other thing is that, and this isn't just a TV or a broadcasting thing, we are programmed to think about, not just on TV, what's the next question? So what happens when they're talking? Your mind wanders to something else, perhaps, and it might be a great question. Okay, I just asked them about, how long they've been in this business. I want to ask them right now about their family and, what, that type of thing. But now they just were busy telling you about like the most amazing thing that happened 2 weeks ago, and you got an in right there. Like, hey, tell me more about that. I had something like that once too. That's all it is just being curious and listening, because I think that this thing goes off into different tangents. And if it goes off on the tangent that's in your head, who knows where that's going to go. But if it goes off on the tangent that's in their head and you pursue it, it starts to take you down other paths. I'm amazed at stories that I stumble into by just being curious and asking. So most days,
totally.
I don't have an agenda with a player. Most of my agendas come from the producer. Hey, I need a soundbite on, clutch hitting. I need a soundbite on middle relief pitching. Okay, let me check those off the box for him. And then let me just go and start BSing with people and let's see where it goes. And I have no idea. And oh my gosh, I wish I'd thought of that on my own, but that's really interesting. And you just let it keep going and going and go. Curiosity.
It's what we've tried to do with this podcast. We always have a kind of a framework of what we're going to work from, but then the best ones we do is just like this. We're just Sully and I haven't really asked one question. That's the question.
Yeah.
It's just kind of,
no, here's a list of questions we're supposed to ask you.
Yeah, it's perfect. But look, he just chucked it up in the air. But here's the key to that, Sully, is that I'm not telling people this is not a don't be prepared. I think that you can best do this when you are prepared, but then you've got to be flexible with it. And look, in my business, I've seen the highest level reporters that are pacing up and down a sideline or foul line before a live shot, memorizing every single thing. That's not me. And I'm not going to convince those people to do it the way I do it. There are people that will do a podcast that need to have every question written out. I don't think that's the best way, but if it is for them, then that's what they should do. I learned along the way with my podcast that I ask every guest, the only predetermined questions are 3 baseball-themed questions. What's the biggest home run you've hit in your career? What's the biggest swing and miss you've taken, and what did you learn from it? And what is small ball, which is my book, Small Ball, Big Results. What is small ball? What are the little things in your world, in your business, that make up the big results? And I will give them those questions in advance, because I understand that if I spring that on them last minute, they're not going to have a good answer, or the odds of them having thought that through. But that's it. Then I just want it to go where it's going to go. But that's what works for me. If you're someone that needs every question written out, then do it the way Sully just did. Hey, we had this whole thing, we're covered, but you know what? It went a different direction. Great. Let it go a different direction, because it drives me nuts when someone, essentially on TV or not, has a question and answer going back and forth, a nice exchange. And then the person says, well, yeah, that reminds me of, when I was playing in the College World Series and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll get to that later, because that question is not number 2, it's number 7. Segue and pivot to it, like segues to me on TV in real life, segues and transitions, that's what makes things less abrupt. That's what makes things easier on people. And so again, it gets back to making things easier on people and being flexible.
Yeah. The analogy I use,
more authentic.
Yeah. Sorry. That's good. Yeah, it is authentic. But the analogy I use is music, right? So orchestras, you have these sheet music, and every musician's, they got to read off this thing, and they got to do it exactly as it's supposed to be, and it sounds great. Then you have jazz musicians, it's all straight improv. And so what I try to convince salespeople is, listen, I'm going to give you some sheet music, but you're not tied to this. Mm-hmm. But if you practice, drill and rehearse, even the art of communication, looking people in the eye, body language. But if we give you some structure and you practice it enough, it's supposed to sound improv. It's supposed to have a lot of transitions, right? It's not linear. Communication isn't linear. It could be to start. Yeah. But you have to be flexible enough to go off. And curiosity is what creates the best. That's what you said. And I love what you're saying is, don't think of your next question while the other person is talking, because it'll take you into deeper the second and third. When did that happen? What was the impact of that? Why did it happen? That's the good stuff, right? I think that's a great lesson there.
And then I think that there's still something like, I think you always have to have that question in your back pocket. You don't want to get caught empty-handed either. So, okay, have something there in case. If you have nothing to respond to, if nothing is moving you, okay, then have that. But you can't be. You got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You do. You've got to be able to. Whatever else is coming next, if it's going to touch on, if you're going to touch on it a little bit in your head, if it can't come at the expense of not listening. And look, I'm not saying I have that right every single time. I mess it up too. But it's an important practice, and it's a tough one.
I'm going to have to wrap here in just a second because I got to go catch a flight. But Joe, I want you to touch on storytelling a little bit, because it's so important. And I believe with all my heart, best story always wins. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit, because I know it's one of the topics you touch on when you speak.
First off, we're all storytellers. So very easy to say, well, you get paid to tell stories on TV. We all get paid to tell stories.
Yeah.
And that'll never end. Storytelling is, since the beginning of time and on and on. So, I think that there's effective storytelling involves emotion. It involves, at least from a speaking standpoint, for me, I want to take people on an emotional journey. So, this, I mean, it's, I want to make them laugh. I want to make them cry, but I got to bring them back to where, I can't leave them on the bottom, and so that's important, but we're all in sales, in whatever our professions are, we're all telling stories. And to me, I just think about it like everybody has a story to tell. So no matter what you're doing, part of the storytelling and the listening that we've talked about is understanding what somebody else's story is and being curious, all those things. But I think that if you can't tell your story, if you can't tell your company's story, if you can't tell it with passion, then why would anybody else be interested in it? So I think that we have opportunities every day to be able to tell those stories. It doesn't have to be in front of a television camera.
I think the best salesperson I've ever met is a guy named Keith Palmer. And when I graduated from college, I sold Toyotas for 3 years. And Keith was the owner of the dealership. He and his brother. And Keith was so good at when a customer was telling him no, to just start telling a story. He'd just start telling him a story about something, and all of a sudden you just watch that customer go from, no to their hands drop. And next thing you know, Keith's got him signing a deal. I'm like, how'd you just do that? It was totally just him telling a story or start talking about something that he figured out would be of interest to them. But anyhow, it's storytelling to me is just so amazing. So I know you talk about storytelling all the time.
Yeah. They'll remember your story way more than any other part of your presentation.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You'll go through your 10 PowerPoint slides, with your specs and your features and your benefits, come out of the gate with a story, right? That's in presentation skills. That's what we teach right out of the gate. They have to decide whether they're going to listen to the rest of your presentation or not. And starting with a story will get them there. And Joel, back to your point, we all have stories. And one of the lessons I learned from an acting coach early on when I started speaking, and you and I talked about this on Friday. I remember I told you how I used to tell stories, and she said, well, tell me about the characters in that story you just told me. I said, well, it was an old guy. Remember? What did his face look like? Face looked like this. She said, remember that. I said, she said, how tall is he? I said, he was about this tall. She's like, well, like hunched over. All right. So now she taught me to act out the story.
Yes.
Right. Where was the guy standing? What did his face look like? What was she doing? Where was the furniture in the room? Don't walk through the furniture. And it really changed my whole perspective. And, when I do a keynote, the very first thing I do is I act this thing out. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for the audience not to say, well, this is going to be a little different, right? And it pulls them in. So what does it mean to the salespeople or sales leaders? Think of your top 2 or 3 stories and think, what is the lesson in that story? She taught me this. There's lessons in take your funniest bar story that you're telling your buddies now, and you'll find some business lesson in that story that you can apply even into your presentations. And most people they're not aware of it, but they got tons of stories. Use them in your work. I think it's a great idea.
The key to all this, and you just hit it, you can say, oh, well, Sully's been around doing this forever. He's got better stories. Oh, Joel's been on TV we all have stories to tell. If you're paying attention, it could be somebody else's story, whatever it is. But the number one key is to answer the question, what's the point or the purpose of this story? Because if there's no point or purpose to it, look, I'll admit, and it took a while when I learned that lesson, that there were some stories I'm like, I've got to figure out a way to get the story in there. But until I figured out what the deeper meaning was, I couldn't use it. So, okay. Well, and then you could do that with any client or prospect or whatever it is. If I'm going to tell this, then why am I telling it? What's the point of it? And then, I know, Scott, you got to go, but when we redid my main keynote, or created a new one, I guess, called Winning Trust. And I used to have this story about when the Royals went, I'm not going to tell the whole story here, but when the Royals went to the White House in 2016 after their championship in 15, and I'll just say that the story involves a stolen championship ring, or a missing championship ring and a lost pair of pants, and a need to find pants to go to the White House and a missing ring. And that was always sort of like my ending, get everybody laughing on a good note, and here's the lesson learned from it. And when we reevaluated everything and we rebranded all this and we redid this new speech right from the get-go, right out. So I'm reenacting this whole thing, and I got Rex Hudler, who's our color commentator, who's crazy, and we're on the White House lawn, and Hud, he's crazy, and he bounces like this, and he talks like this, and he says Goldie, and so I've got them like right from the beginning. Yeah. Now you got to deliver the rest of it, but storytelling's everything.
Yeah, 100%. Man, what a great conversation, Joel. So nice to meet you, and appreciate the time today, man. That was awesome.
Thank you, Scott. Safe travels. Enjoyed it.
Hey, Scotty, maybe we'll get you out to Kansas City and play a little golf with Joel and I.
I'd love to. Yeah. Let's set that up. We're getting into the right weather for it. I'd love to. Yeah, I've got a good buddy that lives there too. A guy named Devin Dollar. In Kansas City, but I'd love to come out and play golf to you guys and do that for sure.
Awesome. All right, Joel,
tell the audience. Yeah,
go ahead, Scotty.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Sully.
Well, yeah, where can they learn more? Where can they get your book? Where can they hire you to be their next keynote speaker at their big national sales meeting?
Well, I think website's probably the easiest, joelgoldbergmedia.com. We're actually going through some new website stuff too. That'll be out in a couple of months, but that's the easiest, joelgoldbergmedia.com. There are contact pages within there, or info@joelgoldbergmedia.com. And I'm on social media and all that type of stuff too. But you can find the book there or Amazon. And as far as getting a hold of me, website's the best way.
Awesome. All right, guys. We hope you enjoyed your time. Scotty and Sully, The Cure. Scotty, I'm heading to Ireland on Wednesday, so we're gonna take a little We'll take a little break. I'll be in Dublin, and I probably won't be in any speaking shape for the next several days.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Call me, or let's do a show with you and a pint.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea.
There's a story to be told there.
Brazen Head Pub.
All right, man. You've been listening to The Cure, Scotty and Sully.
Later, guys.